Exposed. My wife's secret affair unveiled at a hidden hotel. I am 43, and my spouse, F40, have been married for 16 years. We have 2 children, a daughter of 14 and a son of 9. In the early years, our relationship was tumultuous, but we managed to navigate those stormy times and emerged stronger for it. Or so I thought. We married young, and while we lacked the maturity, we always believed that our love was enough to surmount any obstacle. Looking back, I wonder if that was merely hopeful naivete. My wife, for the past 3 years, has been a manager at a prominent advertising firm, while I've been in engineering for 7 years. Financially, both of our careers provided us with a stable and comfortable lifestyle. We were a closely knit family, always making the time to be present for our children, creating memories despite our hectic schedules. I prided myself on being a devoted father and husband, though I'd be lying if I claimed I hadn't made mistakes in my marriage. But for my wife, I'd go to the ends of the earth. So when I discovered she had been in a long-term affair, I was utterly shattered. This leads to the heart of it. For the past 2 years, my wife had grown increasingly distant. Her dissatisfaction with me became painfully obvious. She would frequently draw comparisons between me and her boss. Yes, the very same man she was seeing, and would gush about how he managed things at work, or how thoughtful he was towards his own wife. If I couldn't read her mind, her boss seemingly could. If I failed to take initiative, her boss did all of that for his wife. In her eyes, I had become immature, insufficient. Every effort I made to salvage our relationship seemed futile, whether it was planning date nights or trying to rekindle our intimacy. Everything was met with lukewarm appreciation or outright frustration. For years, I blamed myself, thinking it was my failure to make her happy. Little did I know, there were factors beyond my control. We were friends with her boss and his family. Their children and ours were close, and our families spent plenty of time together. Barbecues, park outings, and game days. We frequently visited each other's homes, and our friendship deepened over time. Ironically, I would even confide in her boss about the struggles in my marriage. He, ever the charmer, would offer me advice. I truly thought he was a decent guy. Then came the night that changed everything. My wife was lying next to me in bed, laughing at something on her phone. I leaned over to catch a glimpse of the joke, and she immediately recoiled, glaring at me with anger. "What are you doing?" she snapped, pulling away as if I'd crossed an unspoken boundary. When I asked what was so funny, she told me it was none of my business, and stormed off to the bathroom. In that moment, I felt it deep in my gut. There was something going on. I just didn't have proof. The next day, I made the mistake of confronting her directly. She erupted in fury, denying any wrongdoing. When I asked to see her phone, she refused. Later that night, she begrudgingly handed it over. But by then, she had already wiped away incriminating messages. Some conversations were clearly fragmented, while others seemed nonsensical. I returned the phone without saying much, but I knew the truth was hidden somewhere. A month later, with the help of a friend, I managed to recover deleted texts. It wasn't the phone she typically used anymore. She'd switched to another device. But the fragments I recovered were enough to confirm my worst fears. She had been having an affair, and it was with her boss. I didn't confront her immediately, knowing she'd try to twist the truth or escape accountability. Instead, I played the long game. Even though it was emotionally excruciating, my mind raced with thoughts of our children and how this would destroy them. I cried more times than I care to admit. Desperate to save my marriage, I purchased a book called Asterisk, How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair Asterisk. Yes, I know how that sounds, and hoped that by giving it to her, we might find a way forward. I still loved her and wanted to fix things. But when I planned to sit down and talk it through, she claimed there was an emergency at work and told me not to wait up. Naturally, I called her workplace to confirm, but they weren't even open on Saturdays. She came home past 2 a.m., immediately showered, and dodged all my questions. I was fed up. I decided not to give her the book. I was hurting, and she couldn't care less. I needed answers, so I reached out to her boss's wife, hoping she might know something. When we met, she was just as blindsided as I was. We both agreed to gather more evidence. She found the proof easily. Her husband hadn't even bothered to delete incriminating messages. The pieces came together, and we uncovered that the affair had been going on for 2 years. The boss's wife was livid, and so was I. They'd been intimate in places we considered sacred: our homes, expensive hotels, business trips. We even found explicit pictures, though we chose not to dwell on those. It was nauseating. The boss's wife and I were both ready to end our marriages. We quietly prepared our divorce papers, waiting for the right moment. And we found it. Another weekend getaway they had planned. This time, we were ready. I went to the hotel with the sheriff. My wife was summoned downstairs, still in a bathrobe, panic written all over her face. As the sheriff served her, she was bewildered, asking me what was happening. I told her simply that I knew about the affair and that our marriage was over. She grabbed my arm, pleading, but I left before I could let my anger consume me. Her boss, too, was served shortly after. Both of them were blindsided, just as they had blindsided us. Now they fight tooth and nail to avoid divorce, claiming they never intended to leave us, that the affair was purely physical, nothing more. They've made excuses, begging for the chance to make amends. My wife says she acted out of character, that she isn't that person anymore. People tell me I'm heartless for not giving her another chance. My children know, to an age-appropriate degree, and while they support me, they wish we could stay together. But I can't respect her anymore. She's been going to therapy and reading the very book I bought, but I remain unmoved. She calls me bitter, but later apologizes, saying she just wants to make things right. I don't entertain her attempts to explain her actions or her requests to attend therapy together. I don't see the point. Now, everyone is telling me I'm moving too fast, that I'll regret the divorce. But I won't be anyone's fallback plan. Am I cruel? Maybe. But I've given all I can, and I have nothing left for her. Despite her ongoing efforts to engage with me, her pleas for understanding, her insistence that she's changed, I remain resolute. The betrayal lingers like a weight on my chest, one that no amount of therapy or remorseful apologies can lift. I see her trying, genuinely trying, but it's hard for me to believe that her newfound resolve stems from anything other than being caught. She says it's not about that she's realized her mistakes. But to me, her epiphany arrived far too late. We still share the same house, which makes everything more unbearable. Each day is a reminder of what's broken between us. She tells me that she's not the person who cheated anymore, but I can't erase the image of who she was during those 2 years. The intimacy she now offers feels hollow, a manipulation of emotions I no longer trust. When she tries to be close, I feel a wall between us, one she built herself through deceit. I've told her that I'm not interested in sex as a way to heal our wounds, and yet she persists, saying it's her way of showing how much she loves me. I can't help but think, why now? Why not before? People around me are growing increasingly frustrated. Even my own mother, who's always been in my corner, is urging me to reconsider. She tells me that people make mistakes, that maybe this is a wake-up call for my wife, and that love can endure this kind of hardship. But love isn't enough when trust has been shattered into so many pieces that I can't even begin to pick them up. Then there's the matter of her boss's wife. We still talk, and my wife absolutely despises it. She's convinced that this relationship, this connection, is somehow my revenge for her affair. She's paranoid that it will turn into something more. I've told her countless times that her boss's wife and I have done nothing wrong. We are both victims after all. But to her, this friendship is a threat, a barrier to reconciliation. She's demanded that cut off contact, just as she has with her boss. I refuse. Why should I respect her wishes now when she showed no regard for mine for years? The thought of therapy crosses my mind from time to time, but every time I consider it, I feel this visceral recoil. I've read too many accounts where the therapist shifts the blame onto the victim, questioning how my behavior might have contributed to her cheating. I'm not ready for that. I'm not prepared to sit in a room and be told that I should have done more to prevent her betrayal. I already blame myself more than enough as it is. She's also pushing for us to read infidelity books together. She believes that doing so will help us navigate this minefield, but I just can't see the point. If we're heading for a divorce, what's the use of rehashing all this pain? Why drag ourselves through more emotional agony when the outcome feels inevitable? Despite everything, the guilt is still there. I feel awful for treating her the way I do. It's a strange dichotomy. I love her, yet I resent her deeply. I find myself wondering if I'm being unnecessarily cruel. I see her efforts, her desperation to fix things, and a small part of me wants to acknowledge that. But the larger part, the part that's been scorched by her betrayal, just can't bring itself to care. She says she's remorseful, but I can't help thinking that if she hadn't been caught, none of this would be happening. Would she have continued the affair indefinitely if I hadn't found out? Friends, family, even acquaintances keep telling me I'm moving too fast with the divorce. They say I'll regret it. They say I need to think it through more, to give her a chance to truly prove she's changed. But how much time is enough? How many more sleepless nights, filled with anger and sadness, should I endure before I can decide that enough is enough? I'm torn between two extremes. On one hand, the pain of her infidelity is too fresh, too raw to ignore. On the other hand, the people around me, people I trust, are telling me to reconsider. My kids, though supportive of me, still hope for some sort of reconciliation. They want their family to stay intact, even though they understand, on some level, what their mother has done. I feel like I'm caught in a whirlwind, and I don't know which way is up anymore. Am I truly being hasty? Will I regret this decision to divorce? Or am I doing what's best for my own sanity and sense of self-worth? Right now, I'm leaning toward the latter. I feel broken, and I don't know if this marriage can ever be whole again. The trust is gone, and with it, the foundation of what we once had. The foundation of our marriage. Trust has been shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces, and as much as I try, I can't seem to envision a future where it's restored. My wife's ongoing attempts at reconciliation are, in some ways, only deepening the rift between us. Each apology feels hollow, every gesture of affection reeks of desperation, rather than genuine love. She claims to have changed, to be a better person now, but I wonder if she's only sorry because she got caught. If I hadn't discovered the affair, would she have stopped? Would she have continued with her secret life, smiling through our family dinners while sneaking off to be with him? These thoughts plague me every night. Her remorse comes with so many conditions. She insists that I cut off communication with her boss's wife, a demand that only highlights how little she respects my choices, even now. To her, this friendship is a threat, but to me, it's been a lifeline. Her boss's wife is the only other person who truly understands what I'm going through, and yet my wife can't stand that. Perhaps it's because she knows how much damage she's caused, and seeing me form any bond with someone who shares that pain only makes her feel more exposed. Still, there's a part of me that feels conflicted. The guilt is hard to shake. Despite the betrayal, despite the hurt, there are moments where I catch glimpses of the woman I fell in love with. When she smiles at our children, or when she speaks softly to me in the quiet moments of the day, I can't help but remember the early years before all of this. There's a flicker of nostalgia, a longing for the simpler times when love alone seemed enough to carry us through. But nostalgia is a dangerous thing. It tempts you to rewrite history, to imagine that the past was more perfect than it really was. Even so, those fleeting memories are not enough to erase the betrayal. I find myself becoming more cynical, more detached. I used to be the kind of person who believed that love could conquer all, that with enough effort, any problem could be solved. But now, I realize that some wounds are too deep to heal. Infidelity is not just a mistake, it's a choice. One made repeatedly over 2 long years. She didn't slip up once, she lived a double life. How can I ever trust her again? And then there are the kids. They've been my rock throughout this ordeal, more understanding than I could have ever expected. But they're still children. They want their family to stay together, even though they know the situation is fractured. It breaks my heart to think of how this divorce will affect them. They say they support me, that they understand why I'm doing this. But I know they secretly wish for a miracle that will bring everything back to how it was. I wish I could give them that, but I can't lie to myself, or to them. People around me say I'm being too harsh, that I need to forgive and move on. But what does forgiveness even look like in this situation? Does it mean staying in a marriage where I'll always be looking over my shoulder, wondering if she'll betray me again? Does it mean ignoring the pain she's caused me, the sleepless nights, the endless self-doubt? I've already sacrificed so much of myself for this marriage. I don't know if there's anything left to give. Her boss's wife and I, we're not the ones at fault here. But our spouses seem to think that our refusal to forgive is somehow cruel. My wife still believes that I'm being unfair by not allowing her a chance to make things right. But what does making things right even mean? She says she's changed, that she's remorseful. But I can't shake the feeling that she's more regretful about being caught than about the pain she caused. I've told her that, and every time, her response is the same. More apologies, more promises, more empty words. And every time, I feel a little more detached, a little more sure that this marriage is over. But then, there are the doubts. The voices in my head that tell me I'm overreacting, That maybe I should give her a second chance, that people make mistakes, and maybe, just maybe, this could be fixed. My friends and family echo these thoughts, telling me that love is worth fighting for, that I'll regret it if I don't try harder to save this marriage. But they're not the ones living through this. They're not the ones who have to wake up every day next to someone who lied, who deceived, who chose someone else over me for 2 years. They don't know how hard it is to look at her and not see the betrayal written all over her face. I've heard that time heals all wounds, but I'm not sure this is one that time can fix. Maybe I'll wake up one day and feel differently. Maybe the anger and sadness will fade. But right now, all I feel is numb. I've spent so long trying to be the perfect husband, the perfect father, and it still wasn't enough. How can I continue in a marriage where I'll always wonder if it'll ever be enough? As much as I want to believe that time might change things, deep down, I know that something inside me has broken beyond repair. The thought of staying in this marriage feels like an emotional prison, one where I would constantly question her motives, her loyalty, her every word. Even if she were to do everything perfectly from now on, the shadow of what she did would always be there, lurking in the background, tainting every moment. And yet, I can't fully shake the guilt. The kids, our children, don't deserve to be pulled into this mess. They've already seen and felt more than they should at their age, and I know that the divorce will hit them hard. No matter how supportive they seem right now, they're still kids, and they still want a family that looks like the ones they see on TV, like the ones they see in their friends' houses. I hate that this will change their lives forever, and no matter what I do, I can't protect them from that pain. But as much as I feel for them, I can't sacrifice my own peace of mind for the sake of holding together a marriage that no longer feels like a partnership. If I stay, I'd be doing it out of obligation, not love. And staying just to preserve the appearance of a happy family would be a lie. They would see through that, eventually, and I'd rather they understand the value of honesty and self-respect, even if it comes at the cost of a broken home. It's not just the affair that haunts me. It's the realization that my wife was living a life where she didn't consider the impact of her actions on any of us. How could she let this go on for so long, right under our noses? How could she look me in the eyes, day after day, while carrying on with him? These questions tear me apart, and no matter how many times she says she's sorry, the answers never feel satisfying. People keep telling me that holding on to resentment will only hurt me in the end, that forgiveness is for my own peace. But how can I forgive someone who shattered the very foundation of what we built together? Even if I do move on, even if I somehow find a way to forgive her, I know I'll never be able to forget. That's what I keep coming back to. Trust, once broken, can never be fully restored. No matter how hard we might try, I would always carry the weight of this betrayal. The reality is, I no longer trust her, and without trust, love alone isn't enough. I've heard too many stories of couples trying to rebuild after affairs, only to crumble again later because the trust is never the same. I don't want to live in constant fear of being hurt again. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm always second-guessing every word, every action, every late-night text. That's not a marriage. That's a life sentence of suspicion. I also can't ignore the toll this has taken on me personally. Over the past few months, I've felt like a shell of myself, consumed by anxiety, bitterness, and anger. I've tried to keep it together for the sake of the kids, but it's becoming harder to mask the pain. It's exhausting, constantly pretending that I'm okay when I'm far from it. Every time I see her, every time she tries to touch me, I'm reminded of what she did, and the pain resurfaces like an open wound. She says she's trying, that she's committed to making things right, but I'm not sure I have anything left to give. The more she pushes, the more I pull away, and I know she feels it too. She wants to go to therapy, to talk things out, to read books together, but I just don't see the point anymore. Why would I invest more energy into something that's already dead? It feels like a waste of time, like we're trying to revive a ghost of what once was. My friends, my family, even my mom, keep urging me to reconsider, to not throw away everything we built over one mistake. But this wasn't just one mistake. It was years of deception, of lying to my face, of pretending to be someone she wasn't. How can I trust anything, she says now? Every word out of her mouth feels like it's laced with ulterior motives, like she's trying to manipulate me into staying. Not because she loves me, but because she doesn't want to deal with the consequences of her actions. And then there's the issue of her boss. The fact that she still worked with him for so long after the affair was exposed only adds to the betrayal. How am I supposed to believe that she's fully committed to fixing our marriage, when she continued to work alongside the man she cheated on me with? It feels like a slap in the face, like she's prioritizing her career over our relationship. Even now, I'm not convinced that she's truly cut ties with him. I wouldn't be surprised if there were more secrets lurking in the background. I've told her as much, that I don't think this marriage is salvageable, but she refuses to accept it. She keeps saying that people make mistakes, that she's changed, that she's willing to do whatever it takes. But I wonder if she truly understands the gravity of what she's done. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a conscious decision to betray me, over and over again, for years. How do you come back from that? I wish things were different. I wish we could go back to the way things were before all of this. Before the lies, before the pain. But I know that's impossible. What's done is done, and no amount of apologies can undo the damage. Maybe I'll regret this decision one day. Maybe I'll wake up years from now and wonder if I made the right choice by leaving. But right now, in this moment, I know that staying would destroy what's left of me. I'm not willing to sacrifice my own well-being for the sake of holding on to a marriage that no longer feels like home. I deserve better. My kids deserve better. And if she truly loved me, she would understand that letting me go is the only way forward. As much as it tears me apart to think of breaking up our family, I know deep down that staying would only prolong the inevitable. We would become strangers living under the same roof, pretending everything is fine when it's far from it. And what kind of example would that set for our children? They deserve to see what a healthy, loving relationship looks like, not one built on lies and broken trust. I often wonder if she ever thought about the consequences while she was with him. Did she think about our kids? About me? Or was she living in some fantasy where none of this would ever come to light? It's hard to believe she could carry on for so long without considering the impact her actions would have. And yet, here we are. Me, shattered. Her, remorseful, but too late. She keeps trying to engage me, trying to pull me back into conversations about the affair, as if talking about it will somehow make it easier to swallow. But I don't want to hear her excuses. I've heard enough. Every time she opens her mouth, it's like reopening the wound, and I can't take it anymore. I don't need to understand why she did what she did, because no reason could ever justify it. She betrayed me, plain and simple. I know some people can forgive and move on after something like this, but I'm not one of them. Maybe that makes me stubborn, or maybe it just means I have boundaries that can't be crossed. Either way, I can't picture a future where I'm not constantly haunted by the past, where I'm not second-guessing her every move. And that's no way to live. There's a part of me that still loves her, that always will, because of the years we spent together and the family we built. But that love has been tainted, twisted into something unrecognizable. I no longer see her the way I used to. She's not the woman I fell in love with, the woman I thought I knew. She's become someone I don't trust, someone I can't rely on, and that's the hardest part of all. She tells me that she's changed, that she's not the person who made those terrible decisions. But how do I know that? How do I believe her, when everything she says feels like another attempt to hold on to a marriage that's already slipping through her fingers? Even if she has changed, the damage is done, and I don't think I have it in me to rebuild. I also can't ignore the fact that she's pushing me to cut ties with her boss's wife, as if our connection is the problem. It feels like she's trying to shift the blame, to make it about something other than her own actions. But I refuse to let her dictate who I can and cannot talk to. The boss's wife is one of the few people who truly understands what I'm going through, and I'm not going to sever that bond just because it makes my wife uncomfortable. If she had thought about our marriage the way she's now thinking about this so-called no-contact rule, maybe we wouldn't be here. Ultimately, I'm tired. Tired of the lies, tired of the emotional roller coaster, tired of pretending that there's something left to salvage. I've fought long and hard for this marriage, but now I'm fighting for myself. I need to move forward, even if it means stepping into the unknown. Staying would be like living in the shadow of who we used to be, and that's no life at all. So I'm choosing to walk away. Not because I don't care, but because I care about myself enough to know when to let go. I won't be anyone's second choice, and I won't stay in a relationship that's been built on betrayal. This may be the hardest decision I've ever made, but it's also the most necessary one. As I prepare for the next chapter of my life, I know there will be difficult days ahead. Days when I'll question whether I did the right thing, whether I could have tried harder. But I also know that in time, the pain will fade, and I'll find peace again. And maybe, just maybe, I'll discover a version of myself that's stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace whatever comes next. I hope my kids will understand one day. I hope they'll see that I made this choice not out of bitterness, but out of a deep need for self-respect and emotional survival. They deserve to see a parent who values themselves enough to walk away when something no longer serves them. That's the legacy I want to leave behind, not one of resentment or regret. As for my wife, I wish her the best, truly. I hope she finds whatever it is she was looking for, whether that's healing, redemption, or a new path forward. But I can't be the one to help her find it. My journey is taking me in a different direction, and while it may not be the one we envisioned when we first set our vows, it's the one I need to follow now.